I had a theory. I had read through changes that had occurred in telecommunications law in the state of Delaware around the time that Attorney General Beau Biden was either coming into being the Attorney General or right after he was there, which means he would have been involved with that sort of development. I think it actually preceded him as Attorney General. I read through the entire changes to the Delaware telecommunications laws at that time. I have my notes with me. It's one of the few notes I still have. As a matter of fact, you're going to love it. I actually have these notes on because at the time I was on the street and I had no paper. I had no notebooks. My notebooks had been stolen, so I had to write them on the back of my original filing to the Supreme Court of the United States. The one that has the letter. This one. I'm just letting you know. Received December 11th, 2018. And then there was a return letter dated December 17th, 2018. And my notes, my handwritten notes are on the back because I had no paper at the time. So I took a variety of notes that would have actually been a part of what my argument would have been, were I to have not been whatever else ended up happening with it. And among those notes were notes on the changes to the Delaware telecommunications legislation. And I had a theory. My theory was that after seeing who Beau Biden appointed to accompany him as Attorney General at the time, that he had a long-term investigation or a long-term political project in mind. Now, if he was the kind of person that had presidential aspirations, it may well have been what would have been his nuclear paradigm. I understand that. It's also connected to what I understand was intended to be Nixon's nuclear paradigm, and may or may not be about what's going on in some levels now. But I think he had a particular way of doing it, and the reason he was assassinated is because other people knew about that and they wanted to do something completely contrary. I also think that he understood that what he wanted to do was in contravention to already pre existing paradigms, and I think he had opposition to them. And I think at least what's available now on the Delaware Attorney General's website regarding the opinions and the pronouncements from his administration demonstrate what I believe would be an argument to support an understanding that what he intended to do as Attorney General was contrary to what was then prevalent in certain sections of society, and that he was intentionally murdered in order to appropriate the paradigm he was working on for purposes contrary to his intents. And it's one of the reasons nobody wants to describe it as a murder. And one of the reasons nobody is being honest about what's happened. As a matter of fact, I believe that part and parcel with my allegation that the Army Futures Command is a terrorist organization is because the outroll for the capacity for the Army Futures Command to operate as it is, trying to operate, was based upon being able to get away with murdering somebody that would have provided a different kind of leadership were he to have not been murdered. I.e., if the Army Futures Command actually thinks it is in any way, shape, or form entitled to do the sorts of things it said it was going to do when it had its presentation before the Senate last year, before Senator Cardin last year, then they would have needed the leadership of someone like him in order to do it without it being as completely criminal as it is. But he needed to be eliminated because their decision and their determinations of what they wanted to do were contrary to what he was trying to do. And I think that there's evidence in what is reflected on the public record of his term as Attorney General early on, and also reflected in terms of who he chose to be supports to his administration. You know, the judge is that there was a judge, now a judge, I believe, and I think he was at the time, and then another person who had a very important role that would not only have responded to issues concerning American military intervention abroad, including military intervention in an area that was dealing with the outrolls that have persisted since whatever actually happened with the Enron deal. But also dealing with the relationship between the foreign assistance model or the foreign military intervention model, including the Reconstruction, with its relationship with the Troubled Asset Relief Program here in the United States. And additionally, the other key person he chose was somebody that was involved in a number of litigious efforts connected to telecommunications. And I think he had a very specific understanding of what the aims of his administration were. And I think they were also connected to whatever he did while he was a JAG lawyer in Iraq. Now, I'm not going to go too much into that, but basically, my understanding is when I was reading that telecommunications law, one of the things I know is that when I was calling overseas, when I was calling my boyfriend in a war zone, and I would have to use a card, I would have to use a phone card. And those phone cards, each phone card had its own unique PIN number. And so if you were in a company, perhaps you were an entrepreneur and you're like, we got these phone cards with these PIN numbers. You use that PIN number and we're going to record whatever your phone call is. And then you will have the option to contact us and to purchase those files and you can use them for yourself, especially now that we're talking about the crypto economy. That's the kind of thing that could be people's individual currency. But that's not what happened. What happened was other people were surveilling and they were listening to people's phone conversations. And then they were identifying people that they were going to target in order to be used as test subjects for the development of certain product lines, up to and including products that are supposed to be for national security or international security. And I believe that's what happened with the phone calls I had with people overseas. I believe they spied on them. I believe they surveilled them. I believe they recorded them. And I believe somebody copyrighted certain aspects of them and wanted to create some sort of profile of some sort of weapon and weaponized technology in addition to the commercial applications. See, this is one of the reasons I refuse to accept a commercialization and that I'm supposed to be some sort of commercial technology. That's not what it was. You didn't use and exploit my life to develop commercial products and then teach me about finance and banking and business so that I could be responsible with it or even be efficient with it. That's not what you did. You made weapons. And the whole point was you wanted these to be weapons that were illegally smuggled and distributed on the black market in order to target certain groups of people to be propped up for opportunistic political gain within the United States and then to be leveraged, potentially even wholesale sacrificed when it fulfilled the opportunistic political gains of people here in the United States and whoever it was that was in favor at the time internationally. You exploited my life to engage me in strategic weapons development. There's no downgrading that to the commercial sector and just say, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. See, you don't do the drugs, so you're not going to be able to derivate it and have fun like we are. No, 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 no. There's none of that. See, and that's, I believe, the reason why you killed Beau Biden. That's the reason you killed Beau Biden. If you look at his record and what he was doing, he understood that. I don't think he agreed. And he had the clout and the credentials, the pedigree, so to speak, and the capability to back up a paradigm to actually bring not only restitution for the victims, which he demonstrated he was more than willing to pursue and take the risk in pursuing, but also to establish terms around alleged national security that would take into account the full spectrum of potential vulnerabilities or moments ripe for exploitation because of bad decisions and because of this tendency the United States has to prioritize covering up for public corruption at the expense of any and everything else. That's the motive. That's the weapon. Opportunity? Nobody objected to me going to Honduras, did they? They only objected when I said I wasn't going to take drugs in front of children.